China was once half a world away, her people and problems of little concern to us. But today, China is next door by clipper plane. And in our shrinking, warring world, what happens to China, in some measure, happens to us. Here is a land of vast distances, 1/3 again as large as the United States. Here, 450 million people have chosen to fight for freedom. Here began the spreading fire of war, the ruthless mechanized attack on civilization, which now encircles half the globe. The world expected easy conquest and defeat, but many bitter years have passed, and China still fights on. The whole world wonders what makes this miracle. What is the secret of unconquerable China? That is the question Ray Scott, young American correspondent and cameraman, determined to answer. Scott knew China. He had covered the war from the time invasion first struck the Shanghai front. He saw the lost battalion in its heroic stand, the flaming ruins of Shanghai, Canton, and Nanking. So Scott went back to China, this time with a motion picture camera, a camera destined to get the China story from Hong Kong to the borders of Holy Tibet. And now, into China with Ray Scott.
Yes, there's a miracle taking place in China, no doubt about it. But catching it in a camera for all the world to see, that's something else again. Because this miracle isn't just one thing, it's 100 things in 100 different places. And maybe, sometimes, in places you'd least expect. Maybe it was in this silent junk that glided across our bow as we entered the harbor at Hong Kong. Maybe in those ancient fishing boats. We inched our way through the outer boom of cables and mines, part of the defense system that now guards the harbor approaches. Past ominous mine layers, leaving the harbor to lay their deadly eggs in the minefields near the boom. Somehow that made me think of the fact that though the Chinese had invented gunpowder, they used it to make firecrackers and never dreamed of bombs. Maybe that was the miracle. The city itself teemed with the strange peoples and weird sounds of the Far East. And above the hustle and bustle of this Far Eastern outpost of the West are undertones of tenseness and excitement, bringing home to us suddenly that here in this British Crown colony, we are close to Japanese-occupied China and war. The story really begins out in the new territory which lies between Hong Kong proper and the China occupied by the invader. Here, British officers are ever alert for signs of any danger to the safety of the empire. British Union Jacks wave in the same breeze that whips the rising sun of Nippon over the Japanese barracks 100 yards away. Here beneath the surface may be the flames of a broader war. In these very pictures are smoldering tomorrow Hong Kong border near Canton stands a relic of another century, a stone watchtower in the center of sprawling rice paddies. The Chinese have torn down most of these towers. Invaders use them for machine gun nests. China is the country of the good earth. Her people live close to the soil. And while the men are off to war, the women carry on in the fields. This peasant woman uses a fan to shield the baby on her back from the blazing rays of a South China sun. The crop, for the most part, is rice, China's staff of life. In sharp contrast to such peaceful scenes, war posters remind the people that on their courage rests the decision for freedom or slavery. The woman in this poster is saying to her husband, "You take the gun, I'll take the hoe," though when it becomes necessary, the women will shoulder rifles too. And certainly here is part of the miracle of China's resistance. Peasants in the fields, workers in the shops, the Minutemen of China. Rifles come out of hiding. The humblest villager takes his place in the new wall of China. Actors in a grim drama, the guerrillas are difficult to conquer because they're hard to catch. They cannot be distinguished from the ordinary run of farmers or shopkeepers or students because that's what they are, and that's how they dress. The broadswordsmen are the most daring. It is their job to crawl up on enemy sentries and with their silent weapons prepare the way for their comrades, harmless peasants who change in an instant into fierce defenders of their land. Bands of guerrillas like these are to be found all over China, even behind the enemy's lines, raiding garrisons, blockading roads, blowing up bridges, harassing the Japanese with lightning thrusts. They strike hard and fast, withdraw quickly, then strike again. The guerrillas have their own Red Cross units. Picked women and girls are recruited for nursing. Others do sentry duty. All are alert eyes closely watching strangers and travelers, quick to detect a suspicious or traitorous move. These are the people fighting the people's war. This is the first of the secrets of China's resistance. The invader did not reckon on the deathless courage of men defending an ageless tradition. It may yet prove the balance of fighting strength that will turn the enemy back to the sea. Aim for Haiphong, keyport of Indochina. Now, Haiphong, terminus of the branch highway that leads to the Burma Road, that all-important lifeline between China and the outside world. Wharves piled high with American-made products, tires, machine parts, medical supplies, gasoline, bandages, steel, the lifeblood of a nation bound for its heart at Chongqing. After I left, this port was taken over by the Japanese when they entered Indochina, and later millions of dollars worth of American goods were seized by the invaders. Here all foreigners are suspect. I was twice arrested for taking pictures, and even these shots of American trucks had to be smuggled out of the country. These are but a few of thousands of trucks waiting to be driven up the tortuous road to Chongqing. Two trucks covered with Union Jacks are loaded with supplies for a Canadian mission station far in the interior. I made arrangements to join a truck convoy for the hazardous trip. The road we'll travel is a trunk line which joins the famous Burma Road. 2,300 miles of winding highway stretching from Rangoon in the south to bomb-scarred Chongqing in the heart of China. The dash across the border always was made at night to escape Japanese planes. And as dusk falls, we're off. The China border about a mile away. drive on all through the night, wondering what may be waiting around each turn of the road. Rural China again. We pass farmers hurrying to market. Now that little trot, by the way, isn't just for speed alone. Notice the rhythmic up and down action it imparts to the springy bamboo poles. Now, actually, on each upswing, the poles, not the man, carry the burden, which means the farmer carries the load only half the time. Bright skies too often are laden with sudden death screaming down from Japanese bombers, so the drivers of trucks and Red Cross ambulances take cover. These are the hell drivers who pilot the truck convoys over supply routes. Believe me, theirs is a hot job in more ways than one. There. That's the right idea. Rivers are still busy highways. There's rice on its way to another village. Roads in China, especially for motor transport, are new, but rivers are as old as history. This ferry is only the first of dozens on the southeastern road. Nanning, one-time capital of Guangxi. In the daytime, a deserted city, streets almost empty, stores boarded up. There are few air raid dugouts here. Instead, the people leave for the fields just after dawn. But at night, the streets are teeming again, the stores open for business as usual. Now, we've seen the guerrillas. Here are China's regular troops. Camouflaged with leaves and foliage, these are the frontline fighters who have borne the brunt of China's warfare against terrific odds. Theirs is a gallant record. For give the Chinese soldier something tangible to fight for, and he's the equal of any fighting man on earth. Roads are torn up to form tank traps against the swift-moving armored cars of the enemy. At least half of the young men being trained in China's interior are volunteers. And here's another secret of China's resistance, her inexhaustible manpower. It is estimated that China already has 3 to 4 million men under arms, millions more in training. Young Kai Ming, who was a student when the war broke out, camouflages his helmet. And still more of the secret of China's power is her army's amazing endurance, built on rations that would cripple a Western army. Rice twice a day is all that China's soldiers ask for or get. Sure fun la. Or come and get it. Scars on the leg of this 15-year-old soldier shows he's already seen action, but it certainly hasn't affected his appetite. Never-ending procession, trucks swing along the Burma Road, the route above all others the Japanese want bombed out of existence. The Burma Road may truly be called the one great symbol of the miracle of China, built by free men, not slaves, as were the ancient pyramids. 1 million workers, men, women, and even children, literally tore away whole mountainsides with their bare hands and primitive tools. They cut through miles of rock, graded down hills, filled in ravines. An unparalleled demonstration of mass heroism. Casualties were high. Thousands died to build the highway that has kept China alive. Here, a Japanese bomb struck, aimed at the truck convoy just ahead of ours. Almost before the smoke had cleared, the workers repair the damage. They wait for bombs to fall again. These humble road workers are the unsung heroes of China. Time and again, the convoy takes cover to hide from Jap bombers. Drivers smear mud over the gleaming red crosses of the ambulances. Red crosses are bright targets for the marksmen overhead. Keep supplies moving. That's the never-ending cry. And no possible route is overlooked. The tiniest stream is a carrier. Whole boatloads are dragged upstream by gangs of men trudging along the shore. Near Guiyang of Dr. Robert Lim, who almost single-handed is training China's desperately needed medical corps. Before the war, China had a bare 2,000 doctors, the equivalent of one doctor for every 250,000 people. World-renowned physician and surgeon Robert Lim, on the right, is but one of China's distinguished sons who has sacrificed a personal career in the cause of freedom. Belief in the things China fights for has brought to her aid these hell drivers, many of whom have volunteered from across the seas. China is a land of many peoples. Here in the marketplace of the village are members of an ancient tribe, the Miaos. Many centuries ago, these people retreated before the invading Huns, and today live far back in the mountains where they still preserve their ancient dress, their tribal customs, and their own language. They come to town only on market days. The Chinese call them the shy people. But even the shy people have taken the cause of China as their own. And when the war came to the Burma Road country, they volunteered to fight, and tribesmen comprise a fifth of China's army. The girls have strong, intelligent faces, bred of sturdy mountaineers. But they are still a shy people. Eggs are sold here by weight rather than by the dozen. Old customs, age-old patterns of life go on as before. Tiger hairs are fastened to the baby's forehead so that evil spirits will mistake it for a tiger and leave it strictly alone. Smoking was known to China long before Sir Walter Raleigh introduced it to the Western world. In the quiet strength of faces like this, we see the inborn character of the Chinese people. Thousands of feet above sea level, the Burma Road rides at the top of a mountain range, opening up breathtaking vistas of 100 miles and more, but bringing peril in the form of sheer drops into great chasms. There are many things to baffle modern science in age-old China. American engineers had said it would take 7 years to build this road with the best of modern machinery. The Chinese, without any machinery at all, threw themselves into the task that by every rule was foolhardy, impossible of achievement. And truly these people in their dauntless strength worked a miracle. The road that would have taken American engineers 7 years to build was completed, and trucks rolling over it in less than 14 months. The road carries two-way traffic. What exports China can spare are trucked to the coast to be traded for more war materials. On every hand is contrast. These pony trains of another era still are in use on all of China's highways. The red tassels mark the lead ponies, and mountain coolies are still carrying their share of war supplies. Convoy drivers are accustomed to these mishaps of the road, and it's only a matter of minutes until everything is righted. The danger is from the sky, not the river. Convoys stalled on the open road are what Japanese bomber pilots dream about. The Chinese learned a bitter lesson when 50 or 100 trucks were destroyed in a single attack. Now the convoys are limited to 8 and 10. Chongqing at last, nerve center of China at war. A city built on the cliffs and hills at the juncture of the Jialing and Yangtze rivers. Easy to locate from the air, easy to bomb. A city which bears what may be a prophetic name, for Chongqing means happy again. Now legend says 300 steps lead up to Chongqing, so I counted them. There were actually 340. Perhaps I should have carried the pony. The people of Chongqing have been subjected to relentless air raids. But the big raid, the raid Japanese militarists have vowed would blast Chongqing from the face of the earth, that raid is yet to come. Meanwhile, amid the debris which testifies to the ferocity of previous attacks, life goes on. Flaming war posters are everywhere, proclaiming the people's will to continued resistance, the bravery of China's fighting men. Chongqing is a city both old and new, a combination of the East and the West. Modern structures, public utilities, automobiles. The marble building on the left is the Bank of Sichuan. You will not recognize it the next time you see it. This is the Bank of Communications. A post office truck, part of a postal system that is 3,000 years old. The United States gunboat guards the approach to the United States Embassy, which stands on the hilltop on the south bank of the Yangtze. The embassy is kept drenched with water, a primitive form of air conditioning. The staff of the embassy, the man giving me a light, is the former United States ambassador to China, Nelson Trusler Johnson. The Tutuila is a sister ship of the ill-fated Panay, destroyed by Japanese bombers in the early days of the war. The American publisher Roy Howard comes to visit the ambassador. The United States Navy maintains its own truck service. Trips are made regularly up and down the Burma Road, bringing supplies to the Tutuila. And cliffs provide Chongqing with a perfect site for air raid shelters, and quite literally, the city is dug in for the duration. Day and night, laborers are busy building new dugouts, enlarging old ones, making all more livable, more comfortable, more secure for whatever lies ahead. Two-thirds of its original population have been evacuated, but enough men, women, and children remain to make it a military objective for bombing planes. But if it's a miracle that's saving China, here truly is an awe-inspiring part of it. Steel mills, whole industries that were literally moved thousands of miles by the sheer stubborn will of men to whom nothing was impossible. There are three phases of China's resistance which might be termed guerrilla or mobile unit strategy. As in warfare, so in industry, China's factories have become mobile units. Blasted out of their industrial cities on the coast and in the Yangtze Valley, 90% of their factories destroyed or taken over by the invaders, the Chinese move more than 130,000 tons of factory equipment, carried on the backs of men or hauled in junks up the swiftly flowing Yangtze. Whole factories were reassembled 1,000, 1,500 miles into the west and are in operation today. Just another secret of China's resistance. Once in a while, even a bomb crater can be turned to a good purpose. A bit muddy, perhaps, but cool, wet, and fun. Hey, fellas, come on in. Optimism to build a new China. On a dusty road. Miles to the northwest in Chengdu, there is to be found another part of the miracle, the spirit of a people for whom nothing that happens today can stop the building of tomorrow. On the campus of West China Union University in Chengdu, there is being written a new kind of story that has to do with the courage, faith, and vision of the young people of China, the students at the great universities on the seaboard when the war started. Japan well knew that only a leaderless nation remains a conquered nation. So in the first fury of the invasion, 80% of Chinese colleges were bombed in a deliberate attempt to kill the young men and women who would be leaders and teachers in the new China and to destroy their centers of learning. Then began the greatest intellectual migration in history. Whole student bodies picked up their books and equipment and started their epic trek hundreds of miles into China's interior. Here at Chengdu, girls from Jinling and thousands of other students are training both mind and body for the important work that lies ahead. Sports of every type are evidence of the modern spirit of these young people. But above all, the relentless search for knowledge goes on. For knowledge means freedom. And these young Chinese have dedicated their lives to a free China. Refugees make soft-soled shoes in a cooperative workshop. Certainly here is a most important part of New China. For this is true democracy. It's help yourself by helping your neighbor. It's a new hope for hundreds of thousands of refugees. And far from the east, it's a tremendous source of things China needs to care for itself and to keep out the invader. Indusco, they call it, the industrial cooperative. And since the movement began in the summer of 1938, more than 3,000 of these vest pocket industries have been scattered throughout the interior of China, each owned and managed by the workers themselves. Many religions. Processions like these are typical, priests and nuns ceremoniously threading their way through the streets. Taoist monks in their resplendent robes. Taoism is the earliest of the Chinese religions, older even than those of Buddha and Confucius. Its ancient philosophy prizes culture and the achievements of the spirit above material possessions. Rich black earth, fed by the oldest irrigation system known to man, produces a bumper crop. Everywhere I went, I spoke to the people. These farmers far in the interior told of machine gunnings of their tiny villages. Yes, the meaning of invasion has been brought home to them. They made it clear and emphatic. They want no peace without victory. Power, not gasoline in China. And so these are Chengdu taxicabs. 20 cents and you ride all day. I found a little fellow who wasn't very serious about war and politics. That famous Chinese comedian, the giant panda, one of the world's rarest animals, found only in the great mountains north of Chengdu. His name is Mei Lan, or Little Orchid, and I was able to bring him back to the States, where he is now in the famous Brookfield Zoo in Chicago. Pandas always do everything the hard way. If you think he's just going to step across that board, not Little Orchid. Pandas are born comics. They don't have to be trained to be funny. They even like to brush their teeth. You might not guess it, but pandas don't eat meat. They're strictly vegetarians. At least I hope this one is. Soviet Union, bringing precious stocks of munitions and oil to implement China's resistance. The famed Marco Polo Road, part of the Red Route, winding along the outskirts of Lanzhou, the China end of the 4,000-mile highway. Lanzhou is the capital of Jiangsu province on the muddy, swirling Yellow River, the world's most dangerous waterway. Rapid and treacherous, its floods have claimed the lives of millions. The people call it China's sorrow. This bridge was constructed 35 years ago by American engineers at a time when the Chinese believed that nothing built by man could withstand the power of the river. It still stands today, one of hundreds of signs of American influence in the new China. The rafts are made of inflated goat skins and can carry from 15 to 50 tons. There goes a shipment of melons, and yes, that is hay. These rafts are like toboggans. They can go down the stream, but not up. So going back, it's man carries raft, sometimes as much as 400 to 500 miles. High, thick walls are characteristic of cities of the Northwest. Built long ago as protection against Mongol and Mohammedan hordes, today these walls still serve a similar purpose. The people have dug air raid shelters under them, for bombers have penetrated even this remote section of China. Within the turreted walls is a central square, an ancient pagoda, both now named for Sun Yat-sen, the George Washington of China. Near Lanzhou, in the heart of the thriving, bustling Northwest, is the cradle of civilization, birthplace of the Chinese race. No longer a forbidden city closed to the outside world, it plays a vital and rejuvenating part in the rebirth of an ancient land. Every fragment of war news is followed through these bulletins and newspapers posted on the walls in Sun Yat-sen Square. Famine in China is such a familiar phrase that the first sight of these glutted markets in the Chinese Northwest is almost unbelievable. But the answer is unfortunately all too simple. Here are the most fertile farmlands in all of China. Crops are abundant, even to the point of surplus. Yet the problem of shipping bulky and perishable foods to distant regions is still unsolved. So here is food aplenty, while other parts of China starve. Some fruit trees bear so heavily that limbs have to be tied up. Orchards and vineyards cover thousands of acres. Circus Day, the same for kids all over the world. Even in China, little girls like to play house and pretend they're helping Big Sister do the laundry. Not camera shy here, but watch the next two youngsters. They would never admit they're frightened, oh no, but they're walking twice as fast as they had been when they saw the foreign devil. Nearby, a little fellow gathered what will be used for fuel. Uh-oh, an open-air job. I was invited to dinner by an official of the province who lives some 2 miles out of town. No taxis, so I tried an old American custom, which I'm sure Marco Polo never heard of. It didn't work. So I tried another that did. finally arrived, and dinner was a very pleasant affair. In the center of the table is a can of Russian fish. Now here, rice, so plentiful in the south, is a luxury. And if you're not agile with your chopsticks, you may go hungry. So is the China end of the Russian supply route that comes down from Xinjiang and the Soviet in the north. It is the northwest counterpart of the Burma Road. Work on both these roads was begun at the same time, soon after the start of the war, as if Chiang Kai-shek even then realized that a long war would close ordinary lines of supply. A camel caravan approaches Lanzhou, loaded with munitions from the Soviet. More than 20,000 of these ships of the desert and thousands of pony carts carry commerce between China and Russia. The end of a journey, thousands of miles over mountain trails and dreary wastes, through outer Mongolia and across the steppes of Siberia, bringing great stores of oil and gasoline from the land of the Soviet. The Burma Road in the south and the Red Route in the north are literally the only roads by which sorely needed supplies can come in from the outside world. Slow, back-breaking, expensive, but there is no other way. He catches on. To Kokanor, into the land of the Mohammedans and the Lamas, to find the secret that has welded together conflicting religions of ancient China into the greatest religion of all, the brotherhood of a united people. Like the American Northwest, this is sheep country, and even the poorest people here eat mutton, a luxury in many parts of China. The woolen hides go to Russia in return for its exports of gas and oil. War reaches into this remote province for manpower as well, for this region is a training ground. We pass a group of recruits on their way to Lanzhou to be inducted into the army. Now here is a problem. Would our truck be able to ford this swollen stream? Wu, our driver, had a tremendous idea. He sent this lad in to see how far up the water comes on his britches, then measures the high water line on the buoy with the level of the motor. The decision was against us. We waited 2 days for the water to subside. Farmers homeward bound with their goatskin rafts. They dampen the surface of the hides frequently to make them more waterproof and airtight. And there's always a free air filling station. Another cave-in caused by rain means more delay. Landslides and avalanches are a constant threat. Sometimes trucks and men are buried in the falling rock. A trio of Mohammedans, typical of the more than 3 million in this area. Will they make it? Phew, that's the way I felt too. Here is evidence of China's road-building progress. There are almost as many roads in free China today as there were in all of China before the coming of the Japanese. And so the war is indirectly playing its part in opening up this back country. From above, we look down on a cantilever bridge which marks the border between Kansu and Kokanor, or Qinghai. Kokanor is Mongolian for Blue Lake. Qinghai is Blue Lake in Chinese. Great freight rafts loaded with wool rush down the thrashing, whirling waters of the big gorge. The raftsmen have to be clever and alert to keep the fragile craft from disaster, But even then, accidents occur, cargoes are capsized, and lives are lost. Well, our luck runs out. What a spot for a breakdown. And of course, even in China, there are kibitzes. But Wu soon has us underway again. Here's a real detour, and in any language, detour means mud and trouble. This is a far cry from a modern highway, but I was constantly reminded in this frontier country that less than 100 years ago, American pioneers were struggling through just such a terrain, battling and subduing the same stubborn nature and laying the foundation of a great modern industrial society. The real development of this part of China is dependent upon the solving of the problem of transportation. Slowly and painfully, this vast land is being prepared for the China of the future and plays its grim part in preserving the China of today. One slip and our truck may be stranded in the middle of the river for weeks. But the truck makes it while I stay behind to take the pictures. Here's how I got across. Walled capital of Kukan, the doorway to Tibet. In a juncture of broad valleys nestled the provincial capital, western city of peace. Mud roofs top the 1- and 2-story structures that house the 150,000 inhabitants. We look down upon the Sining equivalent of a hot dog stand. Rugged Tibetan tribesmen in brilliant-colored polos jog down the principal street. This is truly an Asiatic melting pot, a mixture of Chinese, Mohammedans, Tibetans, and Turks. A lamp of hammered iron burns vegetable oil and lights the door of the inn where we stop. Handicrafts form a large part of provincial activity, and here a skilled artisan fashions a colorful Kukan saddle of wood. Here in this section, China is finding many craftsmen to aid in its new program. On the eastern edge of the city is one of the largest Mohammedan mosques in all China. Here at the turn of the century, hostile tribes were in continual conflict. 20 million people died in civil war. Yet today they fight side by side against a common enemy. Although the prayer hall will hold 3,000 persons, there's not room enough inside for all who have answered the call to worship, and prayer rugs are spread in the courtyard. The devout bow and kneel again and again toward Mecca. These are Mohammedan soldiers, so far from the source of supply that they make their own yarn and knit their own sweaters. A rope maker, deft and very proud of his profession. He makes good ropes just as his father and grandfather did before him. An odd modern note as a Boy Scout troop swings down the road. One more evidence of the new China in the making. In crude stone mills like this, wheat, barley, millet, corn, and other grain are ground into flour or meal by the frontier people. The hand bellows maintain steady fire. Suddenly, tragedy struck. Our truck careened and plunged 200 feet over an embankment. I was able to jump just in time. But Wu, my brave and loyal driver, and his helper were killed. I returned to Sining and chartered other transport, primitive, springless mule carts, still the safest and most practical vehicles for these regions. Hundreds of workers were toiling along the road, and again it was plain why neither nature nor Japanese bombs can close China's lifelines. The next fellow is astride a donkey, a bicycle in his arms. The second has a slab of meat, and the third is riding the rumble seat. That evening we reached this village. At the inn, the woman warms up the hollow brick platform, or kong, to sleep on. Here in the far reaches of primitive Kansu province is the land which may one day be known as the Chinese Klondike. For this is mineral country, built out of the dust of countless centuries, blown down from the many mountain ranges that tower above the horizon. No man who has studied this terrain doubts the presence of rich mineral deposits. One day, a modern China, strong and well-equipped, will tap this reservoir to pay many times its debt to all the world. Along the upper reaches of the Yellow River, hundreds of natives wash the sands in search of gold. Here is a unique kind of water wheel. It lies horizontally in the current for the stream instead of upright, and is turned by the water rushing around rather than over it. A war is fought not alone by men with guns, but by far more men behind the lines who supply the guns, the food, the 1,001 items which an army needs. From these peoples, far removed from the fighting front, come the workers and the craftsmen, men and women alike, who are recruited to perform the endless tasks of China at war. The oldest weaving method in the world still does its bit for modern China. 4,000 years ago, just such looms as this probably produced the earliest woven fabric known to man, and a Chinese was the weaver. This is no mean feat, even for an expert. It calls for strength, agility, and a certain amount of luck. And when luck's against you, things like this happen. Now it's a matter of waiting for Old Man River to have a change of heart. But that may take time. So over he goes, bound for the riverbank some yards away. Finally, he clambers ashore to wait for hours or days if need be, till his logs are free again. Last Chinese outpost on the borderland of Tibet. We are at the roof of the world. In the distance towers the Tsingling mountain range, white with perpetual snow. Natives call Danga the devil's footstool. Tibetan prayer flags flutter from the ancient walls. A young lama jogs by on his shaggy Mongolian camel. Lamas are the holy men of Tibet. Tibetans believe they have supernatural powers to foresee the future, cast out demons, heal the sick. The Mohammedan woman wears a black scarf about her head. These two Tibetan nomads have just come in off the vast grasslands. To believers, one of the most holy spots in all Asia is not far from Danga, the lamasery at Kumbum, only to Lhasa, the capital of Tibet. Kum is the Tibetan word for 10,000. Bum is the word for image. So Kumbum means the place of 10,000 images. We pass many pilgrims en route to the holy place, praying and prostrating themselves as they go. And as we draw near Kumbum, we hear weird and somber notes from 15-foot horns. Over the brow of the last hill, and amid a scene of turreted beauty, we see the fabled golden-roofed Lama temple, covered in solid gold, almost an inch thick. No man knows the value of this incredible building, but many attempts to seize it have been stopped in bloody battle. At the entrance of the lamasery are 8 chorten, or tombstones, each guarding the ashes of a sainted lama. Just within the gate, bright-eyed neophytes give us an exuberant and giggling welcome. If these boys can meet the requirements of their rigid vows, all of them will one day be priests. It is the custom to give one son of every family to the lamasery at the age of 7. There are about 3,000 lamas here at Kumbum. They renounce worldly pleasures and devote themselves to a life of prayer and meditation. Behind this Tibetan, who at last is about to enter the city, is a colossal chorten in the middle of the road, so big that traffic can pass through the arch in its base. In this manner and for hundreds of miles, in slow and painful progress, come pilgrims from far and near, seeking the favor of the gods and peace of heart. Up to the 7th century, the Tibetans' religion was mere witchcraft and sorcery. When Buddhism came from India and, corrupted by the superstition of the past, became the Lamaism practiced today. Leaves from a sacred tree near the Golden Roof Temple are dried and pounded to dust, then sold to the pilgrims. With water added, the mixture is claimed as a cure-all for any disease. The lamas meet in their prayer hall for worship 2 or 3 times a day. Shoes are removed before entering the building, and once inside, each man chants his prayers in as loud a voice as possible, as though he were trying to outshout his neighbor. At other times, lamas devote themselves to whirling immense prayer wheels. Each of the cylinders contains thousands of slips of paper printed with the prayer, Om Mane Padme Hum. A vigorous push sends the wheel spinning, and since it is believed that the prayer on each slip is repeated once for every revolution, a large accumulation of merit can be acquired in a comparatively short time. When a lama dies, his body is carried to a hilltop. Here it is cut into pieces and fed to the circling eagles. That is a sky burial. Black eagles to the lamas are sacred birds. So sacred do the lamas consider the Golden Roof Temple that they cannot worship within, but must perform their prostrations just outside. The hard wood floor of the porch is so worn by the ceaseless sliding of the lama's hands and knees that deep grooves soon appear in the boards, and they must be replaced every few months. Om Mane Padme Hum. Om Mane Padme Hum. O thou, the gem in the lotus. Since leaving Lanzhou, I had traveled over 1,000 miles through China's great northwest by truck and cart, and finally down the river by the pigskin raft. Here were the inexhaustible well springs of China's manpower, the untouched land resources that would one day yield its bounty to a renewed, thriving nation. The deep religious spirit that had lived through 50 centuries and was now adding strength to the arm of China. I chartered a plane and left at once for Chongqing. When I reached the airport, I was relieved to find that, for the time being at least, no unusual action had taken place. Across the river, the city of Chongqing looked exactly as I had left it. I hurriedly checked with local authorities. The rumors were all too true. The renewed bombing of Chongqing was expected hourly. But the people in the streets didn't seem to be especially excited. They were carrying on quite as usual. After all, they'd been bombed before, and they had learned that somehow life must go on. Watch the reaction of the people. Death for hundreds of them is 2 hours off. A man sells his fruits as before. People buy in the same animated fashion. The first lantern is raised. This is the warning for which the people wait. The raiders have set their deadly course. They've taken off from Hunkao, 2 hours' flight away. The atmosphere grows tense. People hurry to their homes, their families. The firefighters of Chongqing leave for strategic points. Closer and closer come the bombers. The first groups leave for the dugouts, many with a few small positions, for they know they are leaving homes they may never see again. A Red Cross crew speeds to its station. A first aid squad on their way to their appointed places, prepared to meet the fury which they have learned to know so well. The entrances to the dugout, cut through massive rock, offer security against the power of man-made bombs. Ready now for the second lantern, the final warning. At 10 vantage points throughout the city, lanterns like these are being raised to signal their alarm. The pitifully small force of Chinese fighter planes takes off. The chances of these fighters are 1 in 1,000, and they know it. The 2 lanterns are up. The raiders are now at Sichuan. They'll roar over Chongqing within the hour. Now all Chongqing is on the move. But there's no panic. It's a matter of minutes. Death is around the corner. The lines before the dugouts lengthen, waiting without crying or wailing or hysterical demand, each for his assigned place. No shelter for this first aid squad. They'll stay at their post through raining death. Many people prefer to take their chances in the open fields. These hurry down to the river to take the ferries across to the south bank. Boatload after boatload leave for their fateful lottery with death. Not far off, destruction races across the sky. These are its intended victims. These are the little people of China, bereft of all weapons against a ruthless foe, save one. But that one, mightier than any power ever forged by man. The last ferry to make the trip. Already a low, ominous hum in the eastern sky. The world's madness is a minute away. As the last waves of bombers leave, the Yangtze flows past a city stunned into complete silence. Great pillars of smoke rise from the gaping craters below, as though old Chongqing were reaching into the sky the fingers of hands upstretched for mercy, mercy that can only come too late. This was once a Catholic church, now smashed and torn by demolition bombs. I had climbed these steps only yesterday, then lined with homes, where now stand desolate walls. Chongqing from across the river, the unbelievable spectacle of man's inhumanity to man. We will bomb Chongqing from the face of the earth, the Japs had said. Chongqing perhaps, but not its people. The city of wood and brick and stone, but not the city of flesh and blood and the spirit of man. Certainly not the spirit of these men and women and children. The embers still smolder, but building begins, every survivor busy with plans for his share in a new city. From her good earth and her cities and in the plains and in the hills, she draws the strength to carry on. This is the land and these are its people, from which the world's oldest civilization has drawn sustenance, in good years and bad, in years of harvest and years of famine, surviving pestilence and flood throughout the ages. Can bombs destroy this? Can they destroy the people who have built within themselves this same eternal strength? Throughout the length and breadth of this land, we have seen that out of which China builds the miracle of her resistance. That is